please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Hello and welcome to the CNBC TV18 special. I'm Shereen, Bhan, and we're in conversation with the Minister of State for Civil Aviation, Jayant Sinha. This is his first interview after the aborted Air India disinvestment. Mr. Sinha, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us here on CNBC TV18. I do have questions on the road ahead as far as the ministry that you look after and the other pending reforms are concerned. But let me start by asking you about Air India, sir. There was so much confidence that the government had as you walked into the Air India disinvestment process. But the fact of the matter is that not a single expression of interest came through, and an EOI is not binding, so one wonders as to why there was no interest even in putting an EOI in place. What seems to have gone wrong with the Air India disinvestment?
Shereen, I really cannot speculate as to why potential bidders were not interested, but we have received the report from the transaction advisor, and if you step back from that report and you really look at what is happening in the industry right now, the conclusion that one would come to is to say that market conditions and industry dynamics are such that today people would not be that enthused about the disinvestment process that was underway as far as Air India is concerned. And of course, if we look at how various airlines are doing around the world, particularly the full service carriers, you'll see that higher oil prices, currency fluctuations, higher interest rates have sharply brought down profitability. So therefore, I think the conclusion as industry watchers that we would have to come to is that the expression of interest was not sufficiently of interest to various bidders. And please recognize also, and I think there's some confusion about this, please recognize that all we were asking for was an expression of interest. These were not binding bids. We were not even at the RFP stage. We were a long way from the RFP stage. All that the expression of interest required you to do was to put a viable consortia together and then come in and start taking a longer, harder look at all of the details and be somebody who had access to the data room. That's all that the expression of interest.
No, that's exactly the point that I was making, that an EOI was not binding in any form or fashion. So why is it that people even chose to stay away from putting in an EOI? But you said that you don't want to speculate on what seems to have done the Air India disinvestment in. You talked about challenging industry concerns. Yes, oil prices are a concern, but sir, let's be clear. Anybody who is getting into the aviation business knows that oil price volatility is going to be something that they have to deal with. On the plus side, I mean, if you're talking about India being the third largest aviation market, by 2020 and so on and so forth, surely that would have got somebody to put in an EOI. Now, the reason I ask you this is because our feedback right through this process has been that the government retaining 24% was a deal breaker. And I'll tell you why. Because look at companies like Hindustan Zinc and Balco. These were divested in the first tenure of the NDA government. And the government continues to hold on to the residual stake that they hold in these companies. And that is why potential bidders were wary of the government wanting to hold on to 24%.
Shereen, there are many other instances that would argue exactly the opposite. For instance, if you look at the holdings that we have in some banks like Axis and ICICI, government has of course continued its passive financial stake. It has not interfered in any operational way with those companies. If you look at Maruti, for instance, where government had a stake for a long period of time, eventually government did exit from those. So obviously there are arguments to be made on both sides. At the end of the day, as far as the offer for sale, what we had put up in terms of terms and conditions for the sale are concerned, I think they were very balanced. They were, I think, taking into account all the various different stakeholder interests that we had to consider. And therefore, our objective of ensuring that Indians had an independent, globally competitive airline which could fly long haul around the world, those being our overriding objectives were fully maintained through this very balanced offer for sale that we had put out.
What now, Mr. Sinha, as far as Air India is concerned, are you going to attempt to take the disinvestment process forward at this point? Will you rework the terms that had been put in place in the EOI, or is the divestment off the table altogether for now? And my second question, and I'll ask you this in the context of what we're already seeing with LIC potentially getting ownership of IDBI Bank, there have been reports suggesting that LIC could even be brought into Air India. Is that a realistic possibility?
Again, Shereen, I cannot speculate to the future. You understand the decision-making process that has been established within government for these kinds of situations. We have an executive committee of joint secretaries. We have a core group of disinvestment, which is chaired by the cabinet secretary. Then we have a very senior group of ministers, which is the Air India specific alternative mechanism that monitors the situation and then takes decisions. So we have multiple decision layers. We will be monitoring the situation as we move forward, and whatever is in the best national interest, you can be sure that all of these very accomplished and capable professionals and senior decision makers will make whatever is in the right national interest and take that forward.
Including possibly bringing LIC on board to fund Air India. Has that been discussed in any fashion at all, Mr. Sinha?
Shireen, you're asking me once again to speculate. I've already told you.
No, I'm asking you if this has been discussed in any form of fashion.
We are considering all alternatives that will be in the national interest, and we will take them through the process and undertake those decisions that are the best for the people of India. Please be reassured of that.
No, and this also means that LIC could potentially be an answer to the problem that you've articulated, because you're not saying no. You're saying you don't want to speculate, but you're not saying whether or not this is in any form or fashion been discussed.
Shireen, you're trying to pin me down, and I will not be pinned down on those matters.
Okay, that perhaps gives us some indication of where things lie as far as LIC and Air India is concerned. But let me then ask you, sir, what is the turnaround strategy for now? If the disinvestment is off the table for now, then what about fund infusion? The demands have been made by Air India for capital. What about cost-cutting measures? You recently did a press conference where you spoke about what you could potentially do to overhaul the international operations, where even with the lucrative routes that Air India has, you are losing market share. So both in terms of capital requirements as well as the turnaround strategy, what can we expect?
Those are very many questions you're asking all together, Shireen. I'll try and answer them as best as I can. You have to be very, very clear, and I think all your viewers and the people of India have to be very clear about this, is that the Honorable Prime Minister, the Honorable Finance Minister, everybody has been very clear in terms of what the objective is. The objective is that we have to have an independent, globally competitive airline that can serve domestic passengers and particularly international passengers well, with direct, convenient flights around the world. That is our overriding objective. Now, in pursuit of that overriding objective, obviously we have been considering disinvestment alternatives. We've been considering a range of financing alternatives, and we've also been looking at a variety of initiatives that will improve operational efficiency and improve, obviously, our passenger revenues and our loads and our yield factor. So we've been looking at all of that. And it is in light of that that we just did a very important launch of the Maharaja Direct premium service that will substantially improve service quality, passenger experience, particularly for first class and business class passengers, and will enable us to continue to grow our market share on international routes. Now, just to be very clear about the market share point as well, Shireen, as far as market share is concerned, obviously as far as international routes, we are really the market leader. We have been the market leader. We've been adding destinations, and so our share has been growing quite nicely as far as international routes are concerned. Domestic routes, we have, of course, not been able to add to our fleet to the extent that we would like to, particularly in light of the debt burden that we have and the fast growth in the marketplace. And so we want to see what we can do to continue to add convenient connections to our unsurpassed global network that we have. Air India is very well positioned to be India's long-haul carrier, and we want to really strengthen that competitive position as we go along. And so we are looking at all facets. As I said, we are looking at what we can do in terms of the disinvestment process. We're looking at what we can do in terms of the financial side of the equation, as well as on the operational side. So all of those are issues that we're looking at, and we are determined, as I said, to ensure that India has an independent, globally competitive airline.
My final question on Air India before I talk to you about other issues, Mr. Sinha. So what can we expect now? There's been a lot of talk on the fact that you will perhaps bring in outside expertise onto the board or even the management as far as Air India is concerned. I mean, if you can break this up for me in terms of next steps and give me a timeline as well of when we should expect what to happen, especially when it comes to the fund infusion.
We are committed to strengthening every aspect of Air India's position, its competitive position. As I said, whether it is financing, whether it is operations, whether it is passenger service, we are committed to ensuring that Air India thrives, prospers, and is really, really globally competitive in every way. And those are all the steps that we are undertaking right now. And this, of course, for us, even as the disinvestment process is concerned, opens up, many possibilities. So that is, in fact, the way any owner would operate, and that is the way we are operating as well. You must understand, Shereen, that Air India's problems are really because of what the UPA government did during its 10 years in government. What has happened in terms of very high-cost aircraft purchases, the international routes that Air India lost, as well as a botched merger between Air India and Indian Airlines. These are the legacy issues that Air India is dealing with. We've cleaned up a lot of those issues. Air India has gone through a tremendous operating turnaround. If you match it against any other full-service carrier, you'll see it's very much at benchmark levels. So we've really taken the airline forward. We have been pursuing this goal of building an independent, globally competitive international airline, long-haul airline. And that's exactly what we intend to pursue as we move forward.
Okay, let me then talk to you about some of the other issues that are currently pending and hoping that a decision will be taken. It's not entirely in your hands, but on the issue of ATF being brought under the GST ambit, I know that the Civil Aviation Ministry has been pushing for it. How confident do you feel that, while petroleum and fuel products altogether may take while, that given the fact that, this is a sensitive sector which hurts consumers if prices go up, do you feel that ATF being brought into the GST ambit is perhaps something that is likely to happen?
We are hopeful. Of course, we've been engaging with the GST Council on multiple occasions, as well as with the officials that are analyzing all of this through many rounds of discussions, and we are hopeful that sooner rather than later the GST Council will take into account what consumers are dealing with right now as far as the taxation of ATF is concerned, and that it will eventually be passed by the GST Council. Again, airlines, we are dealing with a situation where it's a very globally competitive industry, and we want to make sure that our airlines are as well positioned to compete with everybody around the world that we possibly can, and for that getting ATF into GST is a very important step.
On the infrastructure side, and sir, we've had several conversations on this in the past, and you've been mooting the idea of setting up a second airport in at least some of the major cities. I mean, Navi Mumbai has now been delayed. I think the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Mr. Fadnavis, has said that it's likely to now be 2020, if not later, but 2020 is the timeline the state government is working with. What's the story as far as the building out the infrastructure is concerned realistically today?
We are massively building out the infrastructure, Shereen. As you know, we have 1 lakh crores committed for airport capacity over the next 5 years, and this of course includes greenfield airports in Jewar, Navi Mumbai, Mopa in Goa. It includes Purandar in Pune. So we've got a whole host of greenfield airports coming in, and there are actually 14 greenfield airports that we have right now that are in the pipeline. We have 12 major airports like Patna, like Lucknow, like Chennai, where we are building new terminals that will substantially increase capacity as well. And that also we will certainly have online in the next 5 years. So we've got a tremendous sort of capacity expansion program underway called NAB Nirman, Next Generation Airports for Bharat, that will soon show us results, certainly in the next 5 years. Of course, the challenge for the aviation network in India is that our two major airports, which are Delhi and Mumbai, are the ones where we see the most bottlenecks. Delhi, of course, is going to see significant capacity expansions at Indira Gandhi International Airport, because we are increasing the number of slots that are available from about 70-ish right now to almost 100 in the next couple of years. So that whole program is underway. And of course, we are rebuilding Terminal 1, and then we will tear down Terminal 2 and get to a new Terminal 4. So there's plenty of capacity that's going to be coming in as far as Delhi is concerned. As far as Mumbai is concerned, we all know the issues there. We have a single runway in that airport. It's the most efficient airport in the world right now. Single runway, 1,000 flights a day. There's nobody else that can match that. Nonetheless, we will have to deal with the situation in Mumbai until Navi Mumbai comes along, which of course the Chief Minister, as you're saying, has said will take till 2020. So this is the situation we're dealing with in Mumbai. That is the one real bottleneck we have till 2020 or so, till Navi Mumbai comes along. But everywhere else in India, we are adding capacity at a very fast pace. I will also add the following, which is that if you look at Mumbai and you look at airports around Mumbai, such as Surat, Pune, Goa, we are adding very substantial capacity there as well. And because we are adding capacity in all these airports around Mumbai, we are drawing some of the load away from Mumbai and to these other cities as well. And by doing so, we'll try and ease the situation in Mumbai also.
So till till the Navi Mumbai airport comes up, can we expect any respite, any significant respite then for Mumbai?
As I just said, part of what we're trying to do is to draw traffic to cities like Surat, Pune and Goa, also perhaps to Ahmedabad as well. At the same time, we are looking at ways in which we can further improve slot utilization in Mumbai, and there's a variety of measures that are being undertaken. We've established flight operations committees at each of our major airports that are chaired by very senior officers, and they're bringing together all the stakeholders, the airlines, the airport operator, air traffic control, and we're trying to see what is it that we can do to streamline operations and add to capacity. So Mumbai also, we are undertaking that exercise. Actually, the chair of the Flight Operations Committee there is Shri Mahapatra, who's the chairman of Airports Authority of India himself. That's how seriously we're taking the situation in Mumbai.
Okay, let me then talk to you about privatization of existing airports, Ahmedabad, Jaipur. We understand that the response hasn't been particularly positive. What is the status then as far as privatization of existing airports is concerned?
So we've gone through 2 rounds of bidding already for Jaipur and Ahmedabad. First, we had introduced the concept of being able to take the terminal on a PPP basis. That didn't prove to be that attractive, so we further enhanced it by lengthening the tenure of that contract, by adding in the multi-level car park and so on, so that it would become a more attractive proposition. But that also did not find many bidders. And so we are now further expanding the realm of this PPP contract by including not just the non-aero but also the aero revenues into it as well. And we are soliciting feedback on that, and we've received, I think, quite a lot of interest as far as that is concerned. So I think the third time this should go through with respect to Jaipur and Ahmedabad. And we have to establish a viable model, Shereen. That's why we are piloting it with Jaipur and Ahmedabad. If we can find a successful, viable PPP model for our airports and be able to do these brownfield PPPs, then we can move quickly on some of the other airports.
What's holding private investors back, Mr. Sinha? You said you hope that you'll be third time lucky with Ahmedabad and Jaipur, but what is holding private investors back?
Nothing is holding them back, Shereen, when we look at greenfield airports. When you look at greenfield airports like Navi Mumbai, like Goa, like Jewar, there's tremendous interest, and of course, we are getting all the global operators very interested in these new greenfield airports. But around the world, brownfield PPP models are just taking shape, and people are evaluating a whole host of alternatives, whether it's in Brazil, in Vietnam, in the Philippines, in India, in Greece, everywhere around the world. Different models are being tried out for brownfield airports, and to see which PPP model will work well. We are part of that mix, and we're trying to get our model exactly right with respect to these brownfield PPPs. And as I said, we've been experimenting. I think the third time should work. We've been taking a lot of feedback from a variety of players and trying to find a PPP model that will work given the global context as well. Because we want to attract the most number of bidders for this.
Let me also ask you for a status check on the Udan scheme, Mr. Sinha. You know, it is our understanding that smaller airlines like Air Deccan, Air Odisha, etc., haven't been entirely able to start their operations, even though they were part of Udan 1. Udan 2 largely focused on helicopters and new airports. You know, a status check on Udan 1 and Udan 2, and is there an Udan 3 that's on the anvil?
Yes, there is an Udan 3 that's on the anvil, and Udan actually has been outstandingly successful. You just have to go to a city like Hubli or a city like Allahabad, Bikaner, Ludhiana, Pathankot, Jalandhar, just to see the kind of excitement that Udan has brought to these communities, because now they've been connected to the aviation network, and suddenly you know, all these possibilities are in front of them. So Udan has been outstandingly successful. We've been able to provide Udan services to 32 airports. We've brought it to 32 airports now, and that is a stellar success by any metric. And this is on a base, by the way, of 75 operational airports. We've added 32 airports to this list. We are just about to start Kanpur on July 3rd, and then Jamshedpur right after that. So I'm very excited about going to both Kanpur and Jamshedpur and getting those airports activated also. So Udan 1 and Udan 2 have worked out really well. You had two questions, one about Air Odisha, Air Deccan, and the second about helicopters, and let me tell you about both. Air Odisha and Air Deccan in Udan 1 were the only two absolutely new airlines that were getting started. They were starting literally from the ground up. And so naturally it took them time to get the aircraft, get all the certifications, get their pilots, pass through all the safety tests, which we are very, very rigorous about. But they've gone through all of that, they've got the aircraft, and they are now, you know, operating these aircraft in a successful way. So we've got all of them going. In fact, the Honorable Prime Minister got flights started at Jagdalpur, which is in Bastar district, just a couple of weeks ago, which is an Air Deccan flight. So all of that is now coming together quite nicely, and Air Odisha and Air Deccan are doing well. Now coming to helicopters, that was a great success story coming out of Udan 2, and the various helicopter flights are also starting. Chandigarh Shimla has just started, various other flights are also starting. Just like in Udan 1, these helicopter routes will also be started from the ground up. So helicopters have to be ordered, pilots have to be brought on board, safety tests have to be done, and then we start these flights. And that's why the helicopter ones in Udan 2 are taking a little bit of time. Now in Udan 3, we have a very exciting scheme that we are working on with the Ministry of Tourism, which is to use the Udan infrastructure to activate flights to major tourist destinations that are still quite underserved. Khajuraho is a great example where there's just one hopping flight that goes to Khajuraho. If we can massively increase capacity to Khajuraho, or even Srinagar, for instance, which doesn't have direct flights from Ahmedabad, Bangalore, or from Calcutta, then these tourist destinations can benefit greatly. So we are working with the Ministry of Tourism to come up with a scheme that will enable us to jumpstart routes to these tourist destinations and really be able to give a massive boost to the tourism industry. So that's Udan 3, that's on the anvil, and we hope to get it started and up and running before the tourist season starts in October.
What about Pawan Hans? That disinvestment also hasn't gone very far. If my memory serves me right, the last date for submitting bids for Pawan Hans was the 18th of June. Are you feeling luckier this time around with Pawan Hans, or is the ONGC stake of 49% sort of being the roadblock there as well?
We've received several bids for Pawan Hans, and those bids are going through the qualification process. And of course, as you know, all of these disinvestment processes are very high integrity, confidential processes. We ourselves don't know. It's the transaction advisor that handles the process. So that's how that process is moving forward.
Okay, I started with Air India. I'll end by asking you about Air India. Would it then be fair, sir, given the industry dynamics, the market dynamics, oil prices, the lack of any expression of interest, would it then be fair to say that the disinvestment process, at least in this financial year, is over and done with? It will be picked up in the next tenure of this government or a subsequent government, we don't know. But for now, is the Air India disinvestment off the block?
Shereen, again, you're asking me to speculate about market conditions and how the disinvestment process will move forward. As I told you, it's a multi-step process. Final decisions are made by the ISAM. So we'll just have to wait and see how it all unfolds.
All right, Mr. Sinha, I guess I'm not going to be able to get any more from you on that, but always a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks very much for joining us here on CNBC TV18. The Minister of State for Civil Aviation, Jayant Sinha, there on Air India and 4 years of the Civil Aviation Ministry. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of CNBC TV18 Special Power Talk. We will take a break and be right back with another special.